Whoops. Here we go. Welcome into the First and Long College Football Show. I'm Marcus. That's Mason. Thanks for joining us today. We've got some big matchups that we're about to break down, guys. We're headed into Week 12 of the college football season here in 2024. We're so glad that you are with us. As you can see, this is a real well-to-do show. We have lots of money. Production quality is through the roof. Whoever just messed that up, they're fired already. So
get them out of here.
Get out. You're fired. Like The Apprentice, right? Mason, how you doing tonight, man? We got some pretty good matchups, I think. The more and more I looked at them, the more I am interested to see what happens in some of these, and I'm excited to discuss them. We got Tennessee at Georgia. We've got Texas at Arkansas. We've got Utah at Colorado, and we've got Mizzou at South Carolina. Not necessarily in that order, but we've got those big game breakdowns to do. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing all right. I just kind of came to the realization we got 3 weeks left of the regular season, Mark, and it's got me down just a little bit. It seems like it just started. I mean, where the heck did the time go, guys? But the good thing about being this late in the season is it's nut cutting time, y'all. It is time to figure out who is going to make the 12-team playoff. I don't think many people were really pleased with the playoff committee selection this past week. We're not really going to get into that tonight necessarily.
I don't think anybody was pleased with anybody's rankings or selections, Mason, because it just seems like nobody was happy.
Nobody but Oregon is happy, and they should be. But at the end of the day, it's for every team that is on the college football playoff bubble, the mantra is the same. Just win, baby. That's the mantra right now. And that's an exciting thing for college football and for the teams that are still in this thing. And let's see, out of the 8 teams we're talking about today, 6 of them are on the bubble, or 7 of them, I guess, because Missouri apparently thinks that they're still in it. So, so let's get into it, man. I'm ready to chop it up with you.
Technically, Missouri is still in it, but they got to win this weekend for sure, and that is going to be a tall task as they're almost a 2-touchdown underdog on the road at what it will be an absolutely trembling, shaking, loud, drunken stadium of Williams-Brice. So that's going to be a good one there. All right, let's jump into it, man. And I think that we know where we're going first, right? It's Tennessee at Georgia. It's a big matchup this week, SEC style. And we've come to a point in the season where you're right, Mason, it's nut cutting time, right? And Georgia is they got their nuts on the cutting board. So I'm interested to see what we get out of Georgia this week. It was a tough week last week as Georgia goes on the road to Ole Miss, and the offensive line was absolutely dominated, Mason. And here we go again. Here goes Georgia having to face off against one of the more dominant defensive lines in the country. So I think that it begs the question, is 1 week enough time for Georgia to be able to get their act together on the offensive line and get some type of semblance of a organized, well put together offense? I think the general consensus would be no, Mason. But let's jump into this game and check it out. So, am I reading this correctly? I mean, my goodness, Georgia is a 10.5-point favorite here. That's unbelievable in my opinion. And as you can see, the one that I pulled up a little bit earlier today, Georgia's favored by 11. It started off at 8.5. So let's try to make some sense of why the betting public is so heavy on Georgia this week. First of all, the game's in Athens, so obviously that has something to do with something. But that's not enough to throw this thing 11 points in the direction of the Bulldogs. Look, we just kind of talked about it with Georgia a little bit, Mason. And you can see the last few games that Georgia has played. High highs and some low lows, brother. This is an inconsistent offense for Georgia. I would say the defense has been very consistent. We can kind of look at some of the stats as we pop them on your screen, and we can flip around some of these slides and look at some of the stats and stuff. But Georgia's offense has been pretty much a one-trick pony this season, Mason. And I don't think that this is a good situation to be trying to get your run game going, right? But Georgia they haven't relied heavily on the run. They've thrown the ball 60 to 65% of the time this season. And Georgia just needs some type of change up in this game as far as the run game. Got to try to get to that 100-yard mark, and it really makes things a lot easier on this offense as the game goes on. But again, we'll bring it up again. The offensive line was just absolutely putrid last week. I have not seen a Georgia offensive line get pushed around to that effect probably since 2017 at Auburn, right? That's probably the last time I can really think of a Georgia offensive line. And I'm including all the Alabama games, okay? I don't think Georgia's gotten pushed around like that in a long, long time. And it had a little bit to do with the fact that there's guys out there that aren't your top level guys, right? Everybody's got injuries at this point, so I don't want to sit here and make excuses for this offense. But just looking at Georgia going into this matchup, what are some of the key takeaways or I guess keys to victory, you could say, for Georgia in this one? We know offensively it's a little bit of a change up with the run game. Got to be able to run it in some semblance. Got to figure out a way to get a push against this really awesome Tennessee defensive line. And wide receivers got to hold on to the ball. Defensively, Georgia's going to have their hands full trying to slow down the run attack of this Tennessee offense, which is what they primarily like to do. And they're very, very good at it as well, Mason. So what do you think about Georgia heading into this matchup?
Well, I think, you kind of said it at the beginning of the segment here. This game is going to be won up front. Shocker, right? It's an SEC football game, and it's going to be won on the lines of scrimmage. But I don't know that it really rings more true than in this matchup here. Tennessee's defensive front is very good. If Georgia wants to score points, they're going to have to block up front. This really tough defensive line for Tennessee. Now, one of the things that was interesting about Tennessee and the Mississippi State game is they did what they typically do. They had 3 or 4 players on the defensive line for most of that game, kept sort of a light box. And you saw Mississippi State be able to take advantage of that in some cases and gash them for some long running plays. Is Georgia going to be able to do that? Even though Georgia's run game has been effective for some of the season, at parts at least, even against Ole Miss, they ran at a pretty decent clip, around 4 yards per carry. Can Georgia get some gash plays? They haven't had those long runs. They haven't had the 30-yard run and play. I mean, all season long, that it just hasn't been available for them.
Yeah.
We got the injury report not long ago, and Trevor Etienne was on the list as questionable. He's still ailing with a rib injury that he sustained against Florida. Cash Jones was seen in a boot this week. He's on the list as questionable. So you're really down to Nate Frazier. Branson Robinson's not going to be back. We know Roderick Robinson's probably out for the season. So you're trying to establish a run game with a backfield that is just absolutely
with no running backs. Nate Frazier can't hold on to the damn football, brother. I mean, I think we all saw that last week.
Well, and on the flip side, Dylan Sampson's fumbled the ball in 3 straight games, so maybe there's a little bit of a wash there. But does Georgia trust another true freshman to get meaningful carries in this football game, going up against that defensive front and with an offensive line that's ailing as well? You've got Micah Morris, who hasn't played in the past couple of games. He's been hurt. Tate Ratledge, coming back from the tightrope surgery, has not been the same as he was before that. The left tackle has been hurt. Ernest Green, he's been hurt for the past few weeks, dealing with a shoulder injury. So, I mean, this is a banged up group, and to try to establish the run in this football game is going to be very tough. Now, I mentioned Tennessee likes to put 4 on the line. and kind of get a pass rush with 4, and they can do that. I mean, this defensive front can do it with 4, especially if James Pierce is healthy. We're not sure of the status of him going into this football game. But if Georgia's going to get any success in the pass or the run game, they've got to do a good job up front blocking this defensive line. And then, even if you do that in the pass game, you got to worry about a second and third level of the defense that has played at a really high level this year as well. So it's going to be really tough for Georgia. Make no doubt about it. This defense does not give up a ton of points, and Georgia has not scored a lot of points either. So for the Georgia offense going up against this Tennessee defense, I think that's where the game is going to be won. But realistically, both teams have struggled on offense all season, and both defenses have been leading both of these teams.
Yeah. So one thing that I always like to look at in these matchups is not really necessarily common opponents, but which I do like to look at that as well. But what opponents has each team played that are similar to the team that they're going to play? And I think Georgia has got a little bit heavier dose of what they're going to deal with dealing with Tennessee in this game versus what Tennessee has dealt with. Georgia is kind of a different looking offense in the SEC this year. It's they're not great at sustaining drives, and Tennessee is really good on defense as far as third downs. So that's going to be something that I really, really want to look at in this game. As you can see on your screen there, Tennessee second in the nation, third down conversion allowed, 24.21. And Georgia, as you can see offensively, they're 83rd in the country at 38.6 third down percentage. That literally has nothing to do with anything other than running the football. Georgia is not good at running the football. They're not good at getting ahead of the sticks. And not to mention, when we've seen Georgia sputter, not only are they not good at getting ahead of the sticks, they'll get penalties and things like that kind of negate some of those first down plays. We saw that a ton last week against Ole Miss. Georgia couldn't really do anything right offensively at all. So with that being said, I haven't seen Georgia struggle like they did this past week every single week. And so I just want to be clear, this is a super inconsistent offense. Kind of like Arkansas in the fact that when Georgia's offense is running and things are good, things are really good. But when things are bad, they're like really bad, right? And we haven't seen a ton of the really bad this year. First half of the Alabama game, and then last week against Ole Miss, and then we've seen some inconsistencies in between. Georgia's going to have a much more consistent offensive attack. And look, what I was kind of getting at with the whole Tennessee hasn't really played an offense like Georgia. They haven't. Look at some of Tennessee's their last 5 opponents that you'll see here on the screen. None of these are teams that you would look at and say, wow, that is a passing attack right there. That is a really good passing attack. Not a whole lot of that. So I think the Tennessee secondary is very good. I do. But what does it look like whenever you go against a passing attack that, is Georgia has got one of the better in the country. I mean, passing yards per game, 16th in the country, 286.4. Pass yards per attempt, 7.7. That's 46. That's good. Pass plays of 20-plus yards, Georgia's top 10 in the country with 42. So as you can see, this is an explosive offense, not one that is very good at moving the sticks and sustaining drives. And I'll cut right to the chase, Mason. I think this is going to be a defensive football game right here. What is the over-under on this one? It's at 48.5. I'm willing to take the under on the 48.5 in this game as it sits right now. That's really been my thought all week. I don't think either one of these offenses is about to go out and put on any kind of clinic. Let's talk about the Tennessee offense for a second. We've looked at some of the stats, and I'll pull those back up. I know I keep flipping around, but the passing attack, the numbers, I don't think necessarily reflect what has been put on the field by Tennessee this season. A lot of those passing numbers were kind of padded at the beginning of the season. And we've seen Nico, first-year starter. He's kind of struggled a little bit here and there, struggled with consistency, making some kind of silly mistakes. The tackles for loss allowed and the sacks allowed is what I think is going to make or break this game for Tennessee. If Georgia is able to get after Nico and get after him and move him off of his spot in the pocket, I think it's just going to be a really, really tough day for Tennessee, Mason. And not to mention, Nico has had issues with getting sacked and fumbling the ball. And that's not even to mention the fact that we're coming off a week where I've heard mixed reviews. He's healthy. He's not healthy. He's healthy. He's not healthy. I don't know. Who knows? He'll play. I don't have any doubt that he'll play. Is he banged up? Probably, just like everybody else on the team at this point in the season. We'll see if anything becomes of that. But what I really worry about with Nico more than anything at this point, as far as if you were a Tennessee fan, it's protecting the football while you're in the pocket. Georgia's got some dudes that'll come off the edge, and we saw it at Texas. We saw it at the beginning of the Ole Miss game as well. Georgia can fabricate pressure, and this isn't the strongest offensive line in the SEC or anything. Like I said, 18 sacks allowed. That's going to go a long way in deciding this game as well. Yet again, surprise, surprise, the matchup along the lines of scrimmage is going to play a major role in this game. And I think Georgia's defensive line has got an advantage over this Tennessee offensive line. And I think the Tennessee defensive line has got an even bigger advantage over the Georgia offensive line in this game. So what gives, right? And that's why I say I think this is going to be a low-scoring football game. Tennessee would love nothing more than to be able to run the football and sustain drives that way. You're going to have to be able to hit one or two over the top. Tennessee's got the wide receivers to do it. I've seen Nico's got the arm. He's got, all the stuff. He's been overthrowing these guys on these long passes. A lot like Carson Beck, honestly. Carson Beck's done that his whole career. So we'll see. Is this the game where Nico can connect on a couple of those and back the Georgia defense off? We'll just have to see. Anything else on this matchup before we get into our predictions, Mason?
Well, I think when you look at the Georgia defense versus this Tennessee offense, and going back last week to Georgia versus Ole Miss, one of the things that Lane Kiffin did extremely well in that football game, and
glad you're bringing this up.
The score didn't really show this, but Ole Miss had 2 touchdowns in that game, and that was it. The rest was field goals, a lot of field goals, but they were carving the defense up. And the way that they were doing this so effectively is by throwing the slants, not necessarily anything behind the sticks. I didn't see a ton of screen passes or anything like that. Georgia's usually pretty good at tackling on the perimeters, although they have had a dip this season in that department as well. But if they want to get Nico in a rhythm and they want to affect this Georgia defense, it's playing up tempo, which Tennessee has kind of gone away from as the season's gone on. They haven't wanted to play up tempo as much, but I think it's a pretty effective strategy, at least when you're talking about going up against the defense. Now, if you're not connecting and you're not sustaining drives, then it puts your defense in a predicament. So maybe Josh Heupel sticks with more of a slower pace and tempo, or at least more of a neutral tempo in this football game. But the quick passes, the quick slants, Jackson Dart was just able to pick Georgia apart, and even Austin Simmons for the one drive that he came in for the second drive of that football game. It was scheme based, and Georgia was playing in man coverage on a lot of those plays, or at least they were playing man shallow and then had safety help over the top, but they wouldn't get to the safety help. They didn't want Malachi Starks having an opportunity to take a receiver out or anything like that. They had their passes were 5 yards down the field, and the receivers were making plays, getting 10 yards down the field, 15 yards down the field, and that was the blueprint set forth to beat this Georgia offense. I think that Josh Heupel, watched the film obviously and said, okay, maybe we can do some of this. Now, how does Georgia respond with that being out there and being put on film? That's another question. But to me, if you want to get your young quarterback some confidence in this football game, have them just play simple, throw easy slants. It's proven to be effective against Georgia. And let your receivers make some plays and get the yards after the catch and things like that. And Tennessee should win this game, no problem, I think.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's got a path to victory, surely. All right, let's jump into our predictions here. And I agree with everything you just said, and I'm glad that you brought that up. Ole Miss got the ball out so quick, and I think if Tennessee is looking to move the ball through the air, going to have to do it at least some. Then that's probably how you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to get rid of that ball quickly. You do not want Nico Iamaleava sitting back there, taking coverage sacks against the Georgia defense. They will go knock the ball out of that hand or hurt Iamaleava. And that's not what you want to see if you're a Tennessee fan in this one. I'll cut right to the chase. I like Tennessee plus 11 here. I'm not so sure that Tennessee wins this game, Mason. Look, it really the matchup, everything seems to set up pretty well for Tennessee. Got to hit a play over the top or two in this game. That is mandatory for Tennessee in this game to back that Georgia defense up a little bit. I'm worried about Georgia's offense yet again. I mean, go figure, right? It's just not been very good, and it's banged up. I just there's no answers at running back right now. Everybody's got the turnover bug at this point, right? Carson Beck cannot stop throwing interceptions. I mean, he cannot stop throwing interceptions, and balls are constantly being tipped, and it has to do with the fact that the offensive line is being pushed into Carson Beck's lap. I mean, that's exactly what. And don't tell me any different. That none of this stuff. I've heard Georgia fans this week, Mason. I just want to slap somebody. Blaming Carson Beck. How dare? I mean, look, I know Carson Beck was smiling on the sideline or whatever, and that pissed everybody off last week. I've been saying his body language has been off for weeks, have I not? I mean, I've been saying it on the show. His body language is off. But this offense is not Carson Beck's fault, y'all. This offensive line is not good, right? This offensive line is not good. There's too many injuries at running back, too many young guys playing at running back. We talk about all the time. We say freshmen, 18-year-old kids can play at running back. Yeah, that's if they don't fumble the ball, right? And they're typically those freshmen are not picking up blitzes and things like that. And that's what Nate Frazier has sucked at this year. So I expect nothing else. That's what I expect this weekend. Nate Frazier is going to be the premier guy more than likely. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him put the ball on the ground once or twice. And Carson Beck's going to throw an interception or two. That's something that, as a Georgia fan, we just had to kind of live with and accept. But Georgia's been able to figure out a way to win despite all of this stuff, and really it defies all college football logic. So, look, this is still Kirby Smart we're talking about. This Georgia team is being talked about in a not so nice light, right? Nationally and regionally and in the state. A lot of people kind of upset. I think this is a spot right here that Georgia is going to be up for, obviously. And I'm interested to see what that means for this Georgia offensive line. That's really what it boils down to me. This Tennessee defensive line, we've talked about it ad nauseum this season. It is unbelievable. It is unbelievably talented. I'm interested to see what's up with James Pierce. I saw him go down last week. That guy is so good at setting the edge and getting a speed rush off the edge. I think he's a big part of this game plan for Tennessee in this one. But I like Tennessee to cover that spread. I like Georgia to probably win the game. But Mason, I'm not rushing to bet this one, buddy. And if I am, I think I'm going under. If y'all notice the total there, 48.5, it's even money on the over. So Vegas is trying to persuade you, give you some type of incentive to take the over in this game. And I think that has to do with the fact that they don't want to move the line. The under 48.5, I think, is the play on this one. I'll keep an eye on that. We got our Thursday betting show, 7:30 Eastern. Y'all come join us for Between the Lines. That's what it's called. We'll see if we have a play on this game. Mason, what's your prediction here?
Well, I'm with you as far as my picks go, and I think that this game, it's going to come down to special teams by the end of it. I don't see Georgia winning this game by more than a touchdown. However, I will say if one team's going to blow out the other, it's going to be Georgia blowing out Tennessee. namely because this game is played at home for Georgia, and Tennessee has not played well on the road. They lost against Arkansas. They had to kind of struggle for a win against Oklahoma. And Heupel just historically has not played well, or his teams have not played well on the road. When you look at Georgia and what they've done, everybody's going to point to Texas and say, "Well, this is what Georgia could do," right? And true, yeah, they could do that, but that game has been an outlier in comparison to the rest of the games that they've played all season long. That's not the norm. That's the abnormal Georgia playing at their absolute ceiling. So we can't predict that that's going to happen, but we have seen it happen. So when Georgia plays like that, like they did against Texas, then yeah, they could win by 2 touchdowns or something like that. In which case Georgia would cover. I'm not willing to bet that, right? I'm not willing to predict that that's going to happen in this football game because we thought we would see it again against Ole Miss, and that wasn't the case absent the first drive of the football game. So to me, I do like Georgia to win in this game. I think that there's enough pride on this team. I think that the culture is strong enough to pull out a gutsy performance and win this football game. I think that it's going to be won in turnovers, though. I think Georgia's defense has not been very opportunistic all season long. Kirby has been basically begging this team to look for opportunities to strip the football and look for opportunities to pick the football and things like that. And so, to me, I feel like Nico in this situation is probably in a tougher spot, given that it's on the road. It's going to be a very hostile environment, night game in Athens. Crowd is the Georgia fans have already said, even if they're not wearing the black jerseys, they're talking about blacking out the stadium anyways. So the Georgia fans are going to come out and they're going to affect this football game. Can Nico secure the ball in this football game? That's the biggest question to me. I feel like Beck was better last week at protecting the football. Some of that was scheme driven and things like that. But yeah, give me Georgia to win this football game. I think it comes down to some special teams plays and protecting the football. It's going to be a good old fashioned SEC clash of good defenses facing off against one another. I like the under for this play. I like Tennessee to cover the spread, but I'm not rushing to bet that, like you said. I'll be looking at some alt lines for our show tomorrow night, and I don't see Georgia letting this one slip up this week. If Georgia loses this game, they're out of the college football playoff. If Tennessee loses this game, there's still a chance, but they would be considered a bubble team at that point, given their schedule and who they've beaten. But yeah, I'll shut up now. I like Georgia to win the football game.
I just wanted to kind of pull up some of these SEC rankings as far as offensively, and this is based on total offense, yards per game, and kind of where each of these teams are at. And look at Tennessee, Mason, third in the SEC as far as yards per game. Now, let me just say, that's not just against SEC opponents. So, I would have loved to have had that stat, and that was something that I really wanted to look at. Tennessee and Georgia both have not been nearly as good against the SEC opponents offensively as they have against out-of-conference opponents this season. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a battle of a couple of defenses, Mason. I think we're in for a good one, and this is a college football playoff eliminator for the Georgia Bulldogs. Let's see what happens this weekend in Athens, Georgia. Thank y'all so much for watching. I certainly do appreciate it. I didn't tell y'all at the top of the video. Please jump in the comment section. No Name King. There we go. I had to figure out how to say that one. No Name King is already in the comment section. Says, I'm a big fan of the show. I'm a fan from San Francisco. No Name King. No Name King, I have to be honest with you. We're in between little videos that we're making here, so I'll say it. When somebody's nice in the comment section, it just totally throws my radar up, right? I'm like, who is this? Who is this guy? Your name's not Tyler, is it? Anyway, if you know, you know. If you've been here, No Name King says I subscribed last week. So if that's you, Tyler, you just go ahead and let me know, and we'll escort you out of here. But for all you other fans out there, thank you so much for tuning in. Drop in the comment section. Let us know what you think about these games. What's your score prediction? What's your favorite game to watch this weekend? I'd love to hear from you. Because there are some low-key good games this weekend. And I think it's going to be one of those weekends of college football where we're sitting back and thinking, oh, my gosh, here it is, fourth quarter, and we've got ball games in a few of these. And somebody's going down, Mason. Somebody's going down this weekend. I don't know who it is, but somebody who's got some serious goals and playoffs in front of them is going down, and it's going to be juicy. It's going to be juicy. There's no doubt about it. Sorry, guys. I just had to eat dinner, and I literally burped while you were talking a minute ago, and I thought I was on mute. So I'm so sorry, y'all. I look down and the thing's not muted. I'm just like, oh my God. No Name King says, no, my name is Marcus in real life, like Marcus Aurelius. Well, you know what's funny about that? My name is also Marcus, like Marcus Aurelius. So we've got a couple of Marcuses here. We're in good hands tonight, folks. We've got two Marcuses and a Mason. It's M-Town all around, right? YouTube, please don't take my video down. That's not a gang sign.
That was our old beer pong team name back in the day. M-Town all around, you know.
Yeah, all the fans would be around the beer pong table like this.
Yeah.
Every time we win.
What's coming. Yeah.
Nice to have you on here, Marcus. I certainly do appreciate it, buddy. We have a good time here on the First and Long College Football Show. We try to just keep it chill. We try to give you our good analysis, the stats, all that good stuff that you need to make a good decision if you're betting on the game, or help you be the guy at the water cooler that knows exactly what's going on. That's our goal here, and we're just a couple of super fans like you. Marcus said, y'all ever been to San Francisco? I have not. Mason, you've never been to San Fran, have you?
No, never been that far west. Haven't made it past Phoenix yet. Well, actually, I say that. I did go to Washington State, so that's a lie.
We're right outside of Atlanta. So we're just south of Atlanta, where we're at. I'm a little farther south from Atlanta. I'm out in the boonies out here in Georgia. Mason is up a little bit closer where all our family's at and everything. We're not Western folks, although I did go to Colorado with Mason one time and had I think I had a really good time. I can barely remember. We had a pretty good time. Let's just say that. All right, guys, let's keep it going. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Hey, y'all hit that like button for me real quick. It is 100% free. And if it's not, I'll give you your money right back. Okay. I promise. Mason, you want to do Mizzou at South Carolina next? I'm pretty interested in that game this weekend.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Oh, I didn't want to do that yet. Hello. Let's give me a second. All right. Hey, you're fired over there. Yeah. There's nobody to fire. Mizzou at South Carolina. South Carolina is a 12.5-point favorite at home, Williams-Brice Stadium. What time's this game at, Mason? This ain't a sleepy noon game, is it?
4:15.
All right. That's exactly what it was last week for South Carolina, and I think that is a good time slot. Anything but noon, right, in this one. South Carolina fans are going to be fired up. I don't care if it's played at midnight, but you'd rather have a game of this magnitude, and with the season that South Carolina's having this year, you'd much rather have it in the afternoon slot there. Look, you got to tip your cap to the Gamecocks this year, Mason. It's been an unbelievable season so far. Very close to only having one loss so far this season, man. You just got to tip your cap. The offense has really started to come into its own over the last few weeks. We'll add some of the stats up here onto the screen, and you guys can kind of take a look at that at your leisure. But the South Carolina defense has been solid as all get out from the word go this season, man. And it caught me by surprise. I mean, Dylan Stewart obviously caught my eye nearly immediately as the season began. But then I started to realize, this isn't this isn't just one guy. This is a group of individuals that is playing very, very sound football, specifically defensively. Let's go through some of the stats for South Carolina this year. As I said, the offense is coming along. I feel like we've seen some strides with this offense. Dow Loggins was really kind of catching some flack about 4 or 5 games into the season. Offense did not look good. The offensive line has not been very good. And I think it was a bit of adjustment to scheme to try to figure out how to work around some of the deficiencies on this offense that I just named on that offensive line. You can see sacks allowed this season, tackles for loss allowed this season. South Carolina is 129th in the nation in both categories. So you can imagine offensively, as an offensive coordinator, Dow Loggins had to figure out a way to move the pocket, get Lenora Sellers outside of the normal tackle box, and allow him to work on the run, in the run game and the passing game kind of on the run, moving bootleg, things like that. And you got to tip your cap to Mr. Loggins. I feel like he's done a much better job of that as of late. 32 sacks at this point in the season is a ton. That is an absolute ton. That's on pace for 40 this season, and that's just not good. So if you want to look at something to kind of point your finger at offensively for South Carolina, it's that offensive line is not great. I had to work around that, and then wide receiver wise, it hasn't been a team that you can say, hey, this is our number 1 guy. This guy's clearly our number 2 guy. This guy's clearly our number 3 guy. You see Simon is your leading receiver with 357 yards this season. While he has been a nice surprise, there hasn't just been like a go-to guy. And that has caused this offense to not be super explosive. 69th in pass plays of 20-plus yards. 60th in rush plays of 10-plus yards. But this is a run-first football team, and they're really pretty good at rushing the football. Because think about this, Mason. So they've given up 75 tackles for loss, right? So imagine that each of those was 2 yards. Some of them were 5. Some of them were 5 yards. Some of them were 1 yard. All of them were a loss. Every single one of them was at least 1 yard loss. Imagine, so multiply 75 tackles for loss, and I know nobody has 0 tackles for loss, but just humor me here for a minute. Imagine times 2. That's another 150 yards rushing that would have been added on to these, rushing yards and divided up over these games. So 44th in the country rush yards per game. I think that's a little deceiving. This is about a 200-yard per game rushing team here. And Rocket Sanders has been we kind of made fun at the beginning of the season. We called him Hot Pocket Sanders, right? Looked like he had maybe ate a couple too many Hot Pockets. We were dead wrong. He's just he was running behind a terrible offensive line, and so we were looking at it like, man, this guy can't get out of the backfield. Not the case. He's been a lot better than what we thought he would be. He came from a really bad offensive line and a bad offensive situation at Arkansas last year. Numbers were down. Started the season at South Carolina. Numbers were down. And so naturally, most people were like, this guy ain't got it. He's not going to be able to do this anymore. Dead wrong. He's been, I would say, maybe not the nucleus of this offense, but pretty damn close to it. And then we've talked about defensively what this team has done. The most important thing in this game, I think, for the South Carolina defense, that defensive line is going to show up, okay? They're going to show up and play football. They love being disruptive. And 33 sacks this year, 69 tackles for loss. That's 3rd and 14th in the country, so it shows on paper. But the turnovers, I think, is what's really, really important for this defense as well. 19 total turnovers forced this season. Done a really, really good job getting the ball from opposing offenses. That's 11th in the country. Let's talk about Missouri for a second. This has been a really disappointing season for Missouri. And that's tough to say whenever you got a team with 2 losses at this point in the season, right? But we talked about the schedule and how easy it was. Offensively, it's just been not good, right? Pass yards per attempt this season, 6.6. That's 109th in the country. This team doesn't particularly do anything that well offensively other than stay in front of the sticks. They don't They don't take a ton of sacks, right? 20, that's 78th in the country. That's decent. Tackles for loss allowed, that's 43rd in the country at 45. That's okay. For the most part, this offense stays in front of the sticks, and that's one good thing we can say about them. And you can tell that by the third down conversion percentage, 47.83. That's 14th in the country. So if you want to look at something that this team does decently on offense, that's what it is. They stay ahead of the sticks decently. But you're missing Cody Schrader from last year, obviously. Nate Noel went down injured there for a little bit. I don't know if he's back or not. Maybe Mason, maybe you'll have some clarity on that. Marcus Carroll obviously come in this offseason as well. Those guys haven't been able to pick up the magic where Missouri left it off last year in the run game. And then I think you just have to really just say that this wide receiver room hasn't been what we thought it would be. Theo Weiss, Luther Burden, you would think that would be a combination that would be a little bit more deadly, right? Pass plays of 20-plus yards this season. Mizzou only has 20 of those bad boys, and that's 115th in the country. So defensively for this team, they've been pretty decent at everything. I mean, I don't really have anything to like 18.4 points per game. Like pick any stat, it's pretty decent. Pass yards per game allowed 161.4. You can say that this Missouri defense has been better than average, certainly at stopping the pass. Been good on third down defensively, but everything else is kind of run of the mill stats here. Kind of middle of America, a little bit better than middle of America, I would say. So what can Missouri do in this football game to get some kind of edge on South Carolina? I think that there is a big motivation factor here, Mason, with Eli Drinkwitz and company. It seems like he's got some type of edge here to be able to motivate these guys. I'm not sure what becomes of that, but everybody's doubting Missouri in this situation. South Carolina has come off of a couple of, I would say, kind of emotional victories, right? And it didn't affect South Carolina last week. They went on the road after an emotional victory, did what they needed to do. Can they do it again? A program that is not, I wouldn't say used to winning, 10 games a year or anything like that. These guys on this team haven't been part of championship teams. What does winning do to this team? Are they able to keep the train rolling? I think it will certainly help that it's at home. What are your thoughts on this game going into it? Big SEC matchup, 2-loss Missouri, 3-loss South Carolina.
Well, I mean, these are two defensive-led football programs in the SEC. You don't really think about Missouri being, one of the standout defenses in the SEC, but make no doubt about it, the defense is ahead of the offense right now, and these numbers prove that. When you look at what Missouri has done against some of the premier defenses in the SEC, and I do think that South Carolina is one of the best defenses in the SEC, it hasn't been great. I mean, they put up 30 points against Vanderbilt, which isn't one of the upper half defenses in the SEC. 10 points only against Texas A&M. That's a good defense. Against Alabama, 0 points. Against Oklahoma, 30 points. Some of that came from the defense. So, it looked like they were going to lose that game against Oklahoma until a fourth quarter rally kind of got them back in it. But, what can this Missouri team do against South Carolina's defense? I think that's the biggest question, especially if Brady Cook is not going to be able to go in this football game. It does look like both running backs are going to be healthy. Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll should be able to play in this game. How effective they are against this defensive line and this rush defense, that is still a question for me. But on the flip side, you look at South Carolina's offense, and man, they look completely different the past 3 weeks. All of a sudden, Lenora Sellers looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. Certainly, a quarterback with some of the highest potential in the SEC with the skill set that he possesses, and he's starting to kind of figure things out. He's starting to play like a quarterback that's been in the system for a couple of years, and that's a scary thing to think about. And I said it earlier this week in one of our shows.
Hey, you there?
Yeah, I just lost power for a second. We take over for a second, Mark.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. It's a little windy here in Georgia tonight, and we've had some rain. So I noticed some trees knocked down last night as I was out making my rounds at work. So maybe that's got something to do with it. But
It looks like I'm back. I don't know what the heck that was. I thought I lost power, but my computer screen just completely shut down. That was really weird. Sorry about that, y'all. What I was getting at though is the offense for South Carolina is clicking. Lenore Sellers playing better. He's finally getting the ball to some of the playmakers on the perimeter. We've seen Rocket Sanders, like you said at the beginning of the year, not being as effective. And you know, here recently, it seems like they figured out some things with his offensive line, at least enough to get him to be able to run the football, much more effectively here. So to me, I mean, as far as just like a vibes feel, I feel like South Carolina has a ton of momentum going into this football game. Could it be sort of a trap game for them? I don't think so. I think that you talked about Eli Drinkwitz and his ability to get his team motivated to play in these football games. Well, Shane Beamer's done equally, if not a better job of that. They felt disrespected last week when Vanderbilt was ranked and they weren't. And the same could be said here for this week against Missouri. Going up against I mean, it's a ranked on ranked matchup. And having this game at home, I think really helps out South Carolina. That environment is going to be very impactful on this football game. I think that the line's at a good spot. I feel like South Carolina should be about a 2 touchdown favorite in this football game. And I don't think I'm going to waver off of that come tomorrow's pick.
yeah, absolutely. So as I saw it earlier today, it had went to 14, or excuse me, it had went to 12 from 14, opened at 14, as you can see on your screen there. 44.5 right now is the total. And I do think this is going to be another one of those SEC matchups that's low scoring, Mason. Now, 44.5, they crank that number on down. That's pretty doggone low. So if you're talking a double digit spread there on a low scoring game on a total, the lower the total is on the game, the harder it is for the favorite to reach a double digit spread and cover. So that's just kind of food for thought. I'm not betting on Missouri, Mason. I'll just kind of spoil my pick here. I can't bet on Missouri. I haven't seen anything from Missouri to make me want to bet on them. And then again, on the other side of that, look at South Carolina and what they've been able to do. Besides the loss to Ole Miss there, 27-3, South Carolina has been in every single game or has thumped everyone that they've played, other than that Ole Miss game there. So I really like South Carolina and the momentum that this team carries. Look, Shane Beamer, the whole happy-go-lucky, little smiley pants routine. It gets really annoying whenever you're losing. I would imagine, right? But when you're winning, he seems like a pretty good coach to have around the locker room, and I think he's going to be able to figure out how to keep the momentum going for the South Carolina crew. Defense shows up. These offenses, these high-powered offensive football teams in college football are always subject to showing up one Saturday and the timing just being off and just having a bad day. That doesn't happen as much defensively. And that's why Georgia has had the success they've had over the last few years, is every game they go into, almost always they have the better defense. South Carolina has got the better defense in this football game. Therefore, I think it's going to give them a big advantage against an offense for Missouri that has struggled. So I would be a fool, I feel like, to bet on anybody except for South Carolina in this spot, especially at home. So that line seems like it's coming towards me, right? People are betting Missouri. So if you're going to bet on this game, first of all, tune in Thursday for our betting show Between the Lines and figure out what our official plays on this will be. But I'm going to wait till then and let this number come towards me a little bit more and then bet it. Maybe you can get it down to 11.5 or maybe even 10.5 as the week goes on here. and that only betters your probability of South Carolina being able to cover this thing. Again, this is not a bad defense for Mizzou, and South Carolina has had a lot of growth on offense. Let's see if they can continue it this week. I think with the line being closer to 10.5, I would be I'd be really willing to hop on that line. The over under seems correct in this game. I don't see. Maybe you go under that total, Mason. That total from Vegas seems like one they're daring you to take that over. Like they're trying to get you to take that over. But if I was going to bet the total in this one, I think I would probably bet the under still, even as low as that number is. Tune in Thursday and we'll see what my thoughts are on the Vegas play here. I like South Carolina to win this game. I like them to win it by at least 10. What are your thoughts?
I completely agree. I think that South Carolina will win this game. I like South Carolina at minus 12.5 even. I think that we've seen South Carolina get out to these huge leads early in football games, and this could be no different against Mizzou. They've been pretty electric from the start of the football games, and I could see them putting up 40 by themselves against Missouri. I really could, with the way that this offense has been surging. That's what scares me on the over/under. That's why I would actually lean over in this football game, especially if Missouri is able to get a turnover or a scoop and score, score on special teams, something like that, which they have had a little bit of luck in that category so far this year. But I don't see a way that Missouri wins the football game unless there's just a ton of that going on, and we see South Carolina, their offense regress back to what they were in weeks 1 through 4 of the football season. I just don't see that. I mean, we've seen them replicate their success week in and week out for the past 3 or 4 weeks. So I suspect that the offense feels really confident, and a confident offense is really tough to stop. I think that trend continues this late in the season. We kind of know what these teams are, in whether Brady Cook plays or not. I don't think that there's that much of a drop off from Brady Cook to Drew Pine. Especially Drew Pine just played his best football game against Oklahoma, and a pretty good Oklahoma defense. So you might even give him a slight advantage at this point.
Or Oklahoma. Whew.
I know, but I mean, Missouri's wide receivers obviously have an advantage in this game. Can they get them the football? That's the biggest question to me. And yeah, and
Nope.
that is a question. And it's not so much that the quarterback just can't make the throw or is overthrowing or things like that. I think that the South Carolina pass rush is just going to be so disruptive, so effective on the quarterback that he's not going to have time to throw it, man. Without them just implementing a ton of short game or short yardage throws and implementing the short game a good bit, I don't see how Missouri's going to be able to put enough points to hang with South Carolina in this one. Give me South Carolina and the Gamecocks. And it's unfortunate that they couldn't just get one more win this year in one of those 3 games, because I feel really confident that South Carolina could win a game or two in the college football playoffs with the way that they're playing right now. Maybe some things happen, and maybe they could see themselves in there with a big win against Texas A&M. If Texas loses to Texas A&M at the end of the year and they finish the season with 0 ranked wins, and you look at the quality wins between South Carolina and Texas, and you see that South Carolina beat Texas A&M, Texas lost to Texas A&M. As somebody on the committee, I would look at that and look at the way that South Carolina is playing, and I would have South Carolina over Texas, even though they have one more loss than Texas. But at the end of the day, this is a really good South Carolina football team, and I think that anybody who has to play them right now should be worried, because they are Scarolina at this point of the season, and I'm not moving off of them for the rest of the year. I think they beat Clemson at the end of the year. We'll be breaking that game down, but this is a really good Gamecock team, the best we've seen under Shane Beamer by far.
Yeah, and that would be a great way to attract a lot of attention towards this program, to go on the road and absolutely smoke the Clemson Tigers at the end of the season. I think South Carolina has got a chance to be able to do that We'll definitely be talking about that game here in a couple weeks. But let's don't wish away time here as we're breaking down Week 12. Thanks for tuning in to the First and Long College Football Show. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button, hit the like button for us, and drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know how this game's going, and we'd love to hear from you. Those of you watching live, I certainly do appreciate it. If y'all haven't done it yet, hit that like button, like I said, for me real quick. Y'all did an awesome job of that earlier this week, and so I got commented and yelled at all week. So I really do appreciate it. I like being yelled at by multiple fan bases at the same time about all different topics. That is one of my favorite things throughout the week that I deal with. And you guys did a good job of hitting that like button and helping me hear it all week. So I certainly do appreciate it. People are savage as shit online, dude. It's unbelievable. Some sassy men online, dude. Just you pick against somebody's football team, and God forbid, I mean, it's like you slap somebody's grandma or something. Been a fun week, though. Been a fun week. All right, guys, let's see. Which one should we do next? Texas at Arkansas or Utah at Colorado? Mason, I have to say I'm more excited about Utah at Colorado. Is that weird? That's
it's a little weird coming from you.
Yeah, because we're SEC homers, right? So why would we be so interested in Utah, Colorado? Doesn't make any sense. Let's jump into it. Utah at Colorado. It's a Big 12 matchup. Colorado is 11.5-point favorite at home. The over-under set at 46.5 for this one. Nobody's been a bigger supporter of Colorado this year than I. I have just been I have every time somebody said they can't do it, Mark. There's no way this team can go to a bowl game. They're left for dead. I said no. Wait, just wait. And I kid, of course. I was one of those people that I thought that 7 wins this season would be an outstanding season for Colorado, right? And really by all metrics and measuring sticks that you want to use in college football in the modern era, that would have been a good season for Colorado, considering what they came from a couple of years ago. But now is the time in which I have to eat some crow. And I have to say that Deion Sanders has done a fantastic job with this team. And look, all the problems aren't fixed, guys. We're going to go through some of the stats and things like that for this Colorado team. Everything's not fixed. It's not the work is not done, right? But I tell you what, this is what you call making lemonade out of lemons when life just gives you tons of lemons, right? And you got to tip your cap. The defense has showed up for Colorado in certain spots where that just didn't happen last year. It just didn't happen last year. So I just want to tip my cap to all the Colorado fans, everybody who's hung in there. We even had some fans come on the show and comment back to us in the beginning of the season after the Nebraska game, and they said, "Hey, you're right." They said, "Hey, you were right. You were right about that." Well, I'm here to tell y'all. Let me repay it to you. Y'all were right. Colorado's a little better than what I thought. So let's jump into this thing. This is a big deal because here Colorado sits, Mason, not far off from being able to play for a Big 12 championship game and a possible playoff berth, dude. So this game has serious magnitude to it. And Utah comes off of a very disappointing last-second loss last week to BYU, 22-21. Of course, BYU marches down the field there in the fourth quarter and kicks a field goal. Really some sour attitudes about that game. That was one of the ones we got yelled at about this week. I really can't even point out what everybody was so unhappy about what we said about the game. But with all that being said, here we are talking Utah football again. This is a defensive-led football team, Mason. And let's look at some of the stats. And if you've not been under a rock this season, then you already know that. I mean, these offensive stats for Utah are absolutely putrid. And Last week we saw Rose, wasn't it Rose, Brendan
Yeah.
Rose or something?
Mm-hmm.
He came out and played quarterback instead of Isaac Wilson. You make what you want to make of that. I mean, this offense didn't do a whole lot better. It was a good second quarter there for Utah as they scored 21 points, but certainly not some kind of offensive showdown or showcase for this Utah offense. Really, really bad at red zone touchdown rate. Really, really bad at third down conversions. Scoring offense as a whole. There's not really a whole lot to glean. Look, this team can run the football a little, right? 75th in the country rush yards per game at 150.44, 4.33 average yards per carry for the season. Rush plays of 10 plus yards, 73rd in the country with 43. Those are not amazing numbers, but if this Utah offense has got one thing to hang their hat on, it's that they can run the ball somewhat effectively. And typically, Utah, when they match up against these Big 12 teams, they have an advantage on the line of scrimmage. That's just been the case pretty much every game that they suit up over the last few years, honestly, under Whittingham. Defensively, it is another story, right? Really, really good on third down defensively. How good? First in the country, that good. 23.85% third down conversion allowed this season. So that'll let you know a lot about this defense. Does not allow offenses to get out in front of the sticks and stay in front of the chains. And honestly, I mean, this has been the backbone of this team. This team wouldn't be a team that had any chance of going bowling without this defense, right? Let's talk about Colorado for a minute. I mean, Utah, there's just really not even that much to talk about. They're just not that great. But defensively, they will present a problem for this Colorado offense, and we'll kind of get into that. Colorado offense has been really, really good slinging the ball around the yard. And this is kind of what I was talking about in the intro to the video. Not everything is fixed for this Colorado team, right? I wouldn't say that everything is fixed. 132nd in the country rush yards per game, 131st in the country rush yards per carry. Not good at running the football. Rush plays of 10 plus yards. Mason, I don't know that there's another team in the country that we can say this. And I do a lot of these stats. I do all of our stats for these videos, or I would say 95% of them. And I don't think I've seen a team have more pass plays of 20 plus yards than they have rush plays of 10 plus yards this season. I don't know if I've ever seen that of any team. So this is kind of rarefied air with this offense. 41 pass plays of 20 plus yards, which is good for 11th in the country. Rush plays of 10 plus yards, they've got 24 of them, and that's 131st in the country. So the opposite of explosive, running the football, and very much explosive, throwing the football. And we'll see how that recipe works for this Utah team. Sacks allowed for Colorado, 29 this season. That's 120th. I mean, water wet, fire hot. Colorado offensive lines can't hold defensive lines off of their quarterback. I mean, these are one of the known elements of the world that we've gotten to know over just the last couple of years here with Colorado. Tackles for loss allowed, 56. That's 96 in the country. So you can kind of see what the trend is for this offensive line for Colorado. Have a hard time blocking folks. And luckily, Shedeur is mobile enough to be able to, I mean, he'll turn a 5-step drop into a 17-step drop if he needs to. Dude will run straight backwards, right, and to avoid sacks, and which one would argue makes it even harder on some of those, especially the tackles on the ends of that offensive line. But I digress. It's just not a great group offensively. Defensively is where this team has really taken a step in the right direction. Sacks gained this season, 9th in the country, Mason. They are top 10 in sacks. They are top 25 in tackles for loss with 64 of them, and top 30 in the country in turnovers forced with 16. So those metrics alone will allow your defense to be able to get teams behind the chains, right, and steal possessions away from teams. And whenever you've got a defense that maybe doesn't have the Jimmies and Joes at every position that you would want in your perfect world, those havoc stats are very, very important. And Colorado has figured out a way to increase those statistics for the havoc plays, and it's made the world of difference for this team. I would dare to say that the offense, the numbers looked very similar last year, Mason. By the end of the season, the rankings and stuff looked very similar to this. So I don't think a ton has changed offensively for this team. There's some playmakers on the offensive line that are very young, so there's some changes there, but they're not ready to change the look of this offense. Defensively is where this team's gotten so much better. All right, I'm going to shut my big fat mouth, and I will let you give us your take on this football game. What are you thinking as Utah travels to Boulder to face the Fighting Primes?
Well, I'll kind of start with a point you had kind of ended with there. Not a lot has changed for this Colorado offense, and similarly, not a lot has changed for this Utah defense. So when I look last year, this was a Utah defense that held Colorado to just 17 points. How is that, right? This is a really explosive passing attack for Colorado. However, Utah's defense is really good against the pass. Their completion percentage of quarterbacks that they're facing is under 50%. That's second in the country in quarterback completion percentage. They're giving up only 175 yards through the air per game. That's good for 18th in the country. This is a top 15 overall defense in the country. They're playing really well. And when you look at Colorado, they're still not able to run the football. They really struggle on 3rd and short when you would think at 3rd and 1 you just run the football, right? Not Colorado. Not unless Shador's taken off with it. Colorado's going to try to drop back and pass at 3rd and 1. I think that could get them into trouble in some situations where they feel like they're forced to go for it on 4th down and aren't able to connect against a stingy Utah defense. But then on the flip side, I also look at Utah's defense, not very opportunistic in the turnovers. They're 63rd in the country in interceptions and 128th in fumbles recovered. So to me, can Utah get a little bit of luck? Some of those interceptions and fumbles come down to luck. Does the tide turn a little bit? Do they kind of progress back to the median here and get some turnovers in this football game? I think that is a way that they will have to win it. Get some 4th down stops, play really sound special teams, and then they could fight their way back into this football game. Looking at Colorado, I mentioned that they haven't been able to run the football very well. Utah, by the way, against BYU, the majority of BYU's success against Utah came on the ground. They weren't BYU, which they've had a pretty good passing attack under Retzloff. They weren't that effective, minus a few big throws in that football game, particularly in the second half. So to me, I mean, I look at that matchup and I wonder if Colorado is going to have a little bit more success there going up against this Utah defense and their secondary. Now, I don't think that Utah has faced a team with as good of receivers as Colorado has. So that I do feel like Colorado is going to have some success. I really like, of course, I like Travis Hunter. I really like Theo Weiss in this football game. I like LaJohntay Wester and what he's been able to do. I like the tight end. Man, that guy's freaking impossible to get down, it seems like. So I've been really impressed with that. But Colorado has had some issues with special teams. I'd like to see them clean that up, especially going up against a Kyle Whittingham led football team that is very well coached. Special teams could come in or could kind of snake bite you, I guess, in this football game. This Colorado team, it still looks like a Big 12 defense, but we've seen some progress. I saw a good stop on 4th and goal against Texas Tech. That was huge. They're opportunistic. They are forcing some turnovers. But I'm concerned for Colorado this week in the fact that they're facing this tougher defense. Two similar defense that they faced this year were Kansas State and Nebraska, and they scored a combined 38 points in those football games. Right, so that's good for 19 points each. I told you last year in this football game, Colorado was only able to just score 17 points in that football game. But the question is, can Utah's offense put up more than 24 points against Colorado? And that's where I have a question. Brent Keithy goes out last game. It seems like he's done for the season. He was obviously their biggest weapon. I really like what Dorian Singer has done this year. You throw it in his perimeter, and he's catching that ball and coming down with it. He's actually coming on as of late. I don't know that we've seen enough out of Brendan Rose to know really what he is going up against a BYU defense, but I think he was effective. I feel like he did enough in that football game to warrant giving him the start this week as well. He certainly didn't cost Utah the game against BYU. But I'm wondering if there are enough playmakers on this Utah team to affect Colorado's defense and score enough points. We haven't seen it all season outside of when Cam Rising was playing. Could this be a game where they put it all together? I'm not sure. And then bouncing back, I know I'm going back and forth a little bit here, but I'm also interested to see how Utah defends the screen passes by Colorado, because they have been running the screen passes very efficiently and effectively. That's a big part of their game, and that's really that they're passing, in those short yardage situations, they're passing, getting the screenplays, and it's almost, it's almost like their run game, whenever they throw those screen passes and all that, because Colorado doesn't have a run game. So that it's going to be a little bit interesting to me to see how Utah defends that. But yeah, I like Colorado in this football game. I don't think that they cover the 10 points though. I think this is a nail biter. I really feel like Utah's defense is going to pose some problems. And like I said, special teams is probably going to be a little bit of an issue here for Colorado. I could see some turnovers going Utah's way and making this a really messy football game. But I do like Colorado to win it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm liking the under. Mason, I like the under again. I know that's a low total there at 46.5. Vegas just would love nothing more than to shoo you off all these unders with these low numbers. But this is the year of the defense, man. I don't see an offense that's just like, just it doesn't matter what defense they play, they're going to score 40 points. I don't see that offense this year, and I don't see it necessarily with Colorado with the way that they're kind of a one-trick pony. I like Colorado to win the game, just like you. I don't like them to cover this spread here of a double-digit spread in a low-scoring football game. I think Colorado could end up winning this game, 27-10 or something like that. So I don't see this thing 27-13 maybe. I don't see this one getting real high scoring, but I think it's going to be a really good football game. And it doesn't matter. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. It doesn't matter. You don't need style points here. Colorado needs to win this thing by 1 point. It doesn't matter. BYU just beat Utah by 1 point last week. Doesn't matter. Makes no bit of difference at all. Colorado just win, baby. And Colorado is well on their way for a really historic season. If you're new to the First and Long College Football Show, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button. Come join us on Thursday. We're going to have our betting show. I'll probably have a bet on this game on our Best Bets show. Like I said, it's every Thursday. It's called Between the Lines, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Come and join us and let us know in the comment section what your best bets are of the week. And on this video, let us know what your score prediction is for this one. I'd love to hear from you, Colorado fans and Utah fans. Colorado fans, you got to be feeling good and probably a little nervous, right? Headed into this one. Big game that is not getting the national attention, but it is getting the attention it deserves here on the First and Long College Football Show. Thank you so much for watching. Those of you watching live, thank you so much. We've got one more game that we're going to jump into here, and it's going to be Texas at Arkansas. If y'all have got another game that you're interested in this weekend, I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. If you missed some of the games that we broke down earlier this week, I encourage you to go back onto the video portion there on our homepage. Go check those out. We've already broke down some of the secondary matchups or matchups that we thought were intriguing, but not necessarily in the national spotlight this week, headed into week 12. So go check those out. Like the videos, help us out. Even just go click on them and like them, whatever you do. It would be certainly appreciated. Whoops, not that one. All right, let's do this last one, Mason. Texas at Arkansas. Arkansas is a 13.5-point home dog. Over under set at a whopping 57.5 in this one. Can Texas go on the road and take care of an Arkansas team that offensively has been statistically very, very good this season, Mason? I mean, they have been very good. The bugaboo for this Arkansas Razorbacks team this year, and really something that has been indicative of either a win or a loss in whatever game you want to point at, is turnovers. This Arkansas team, when they don't turn the ball over, they're very hard to beat. Very, very hard to beat. I think Texas matches up well, though, with this defense. Let's kind of jump into this thing. As we said, Texas is the big favorite here going on the road. This game is going to be at noon, so I think that helps Texas out a little bit. Here's the deal. Arkansas has been pretty doggone good against the run this season, Mason. And we'll kind of go over the Arkansas stats and work our way back to that slide. But if you look defensively for Arkansas, they've been really, really good against the run this season, right? Rush yards per carry allowed 3.58, yards per game allowed rushing 121.22. That's 36, 29th. Opponent rush plays of 10-plus yards. This surprised me, Mason. Opponent rush plays of 10-plus yards this season, only 23 have been given up. That's second in the country this season for an Arkansas defense. But here's the problem. It's the pass yards per game allowed and just the passing stats allowed in general by this defense that's been a real bugaboo for this Arkansas defense as a whole. And lo and behold, that kind of fits right into what Texas is looking to do in this football game. So I think that's kind of where you get almost a 2-touchdown spread here. Like I said, defensively, Arkansas is good against the run. I don't think Texas is great at running the football. I just don't think – I think they're another one of those SEC teams. You can name Georgia, right? You can name Ole Miss, and you can name Texas. None of those three teams, while they are still considered contenders, none of those three teams are very good at running the football. And Arkansas has got a good starting defensive line. So Arkansas has got the makings defensively to take something away from this Texas offense, which is the first ingredient to being able to beat a team that's better than you, is to try to make them one-dimensional. And I think Arkansas is going to be able to do that. Now, is that enough in this game? I don't think it's going to be enough, Mason. I don't think that is enough. I think Arkansas has got to get a turnover or two off of Quinn Ewers and this Texas offense. And in turn, offensively for Arkansas, we'll kind of transition to them offensively. You can't turn the football over. We just mentioned that. It's been really bad. 90th in offensive turnovers this season. They've given up 15, right? And 7 of those have been interceptions, which 7 interceptions is not really a lot for this point in the season. So it's really not the interceptions. They've lost 8 fumbles. 8 fumbles. And I think that has a lot to do with the sacks that are being allowed. Because if you want to look at offensively for Arkansas, look at the stats. I mean, they're awesome. 33rd, 32nd, 30th, 11th, 11th, 13th, 30th, 6th, 12th. And then you get down to sacks allowed and tackles for loss allowed, 106th and 105th. There's where a lot of the fumbles are coming from, my friend. People sneaking around the edge of this offensive line and knocking the football right out of the quarterback's hands. That's been a problem. And Texas is also very good rushing off the edge. Now, they don't have the most sacks in the country or anything like that, but they are good at getting pressure. And I do like the edges for Texas to be able to provide some of that pressure in this game. We'll see how Arkansas is able to combat that. They like to run the football with the quarterback. They like the read option, things like that. So we'll see how they kind of combat some of that pressure coming off the edge and see if they can maybe keep some of those defenders at bay. Texas has not been as good offensively, I think, is what a lot of people thought they'd be this season, Mason. Now, is that to say that this has been a bad Texas offense? I'm not saying that. But after what we saw last year, I think a lot of people thought coming into this 2024 season that Steve Sarkisian would take another leap forward offensively, and I don't know that that's happened. And I don't know that it would have been fair to expect that considering the issues that this team has had keeping running backs healthy, right? CJ Baxter was supposed to be that dude going into the 2024 season for this run attack, and he's obviously hurt before you're able to really get going. So that's kind of one aspect of it. And then you lose some unbelievable wide receivers from last year that go off to the NFL. So I think it was really unfair to sit and think that this offense was going to be better. And that's not even to mention the fact that this team transitioned from the Big 12 to the SEC. Texas fans, you let me know in the comment section now. I mean, it's night and day difference, right? And I think some of the step down and some of the numbers and things like that from last year offensively for Texas has got a lot to do with the fact that they're playing some of the best defenses in the country week in and week out. Now, Texas kind of lucked up. The schedule hasn't been that tough other than the Georgia game in which you lose by 15 there. And that's one of the defenses that I'm kind of talking about. Passing the ball is where Texas has got a huge advantage in this one. Passing game's going to have to be on, right? And I think it will be, and I think you're going to have opportunities for these wide receivers to eat. Defensively is where Texas has gotten so much better this year, Mason. They're so much better in the secondary, it's not even funny. Now, have they played unbelievable passing offenses all season? I wouldn't say so. Okay, I wouldn't say so. But I have two eyeballs in my head that both of them work exceptionally well. And I see what the secondary is. This is a different looking defense than what we saw last year from Texas. Last year, the front end was really strong. Sweat and Murphy there on that defensive line allowed less than 100 yards rushing every week, right? I don't know that they allowed over 100 yards rushing hardly at all last year. This defense is built differently. It's the back end that's so damn strong. Steve Kwiatkowski has done a great job addressing the issues in that secondary, bringing in a guy like Andrew Makuba over from Clemson, who was at one point a freshman All-American, right? And I think that this secondary is the real deal. I really do. They're ball hawks. They're the real deal. I think the linebacker room is pretty doggone good. I think Anthony Hill is exceptional. I think everybody else around him is pretty good. And then, I think the weakness of this defense for Texas, if there is one, is the middle of that defensive line. Is Arkansas able to exploit that? Arkansas is not a team that runs up the middle a ton necessarily. But I think that that's a point of attack that maybe Arkansas can get a little bit of leverage there. Now that I've kind of went through both of these teams, kind of give me your thoughts on this game. What are the keys to victory for each of these teams heading into this one? I think we named probably the number one thing, and that's protecting the football. Arkansas's got to do that first and foremost. Otherwise, they don't stand a damn chance. We've seen it time and time again, huh?
Well, yeah, and as bad as Arkansas has been at protecting the football, Texas has been giving it up equally as much. They're 114th in the country in fumbles, allowing almost one fumble per game, and similarly, almost one interception per game. That puts them at 87th in the country. So, that's not a stat that I think many people pay attention to for Texas. It doesn't get as much focus because they're winning, and outside of the one ranked matchup that they had that they lost, they've been able to beat up on some unranked opponents. And to me, that's the biggest question for Texas is who have you played, and how can we use some sort of deductive reasoning based on who you've played? Because I think that Arkansas has had a much tougher schedule, and they've played some opponents really close. I mean, they beat Tennessee. If you're telling me that Arkansas can beat Tennessee, I'm telling you they can beat Texas. Nobody's saying that this game is going to be an absolute blowout, or maybe Texas fans are saying that. I don't know. You tell me in the comment section. But I think that this is kind of a head scratching game. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to get out of Texas. I saw them schematically have an absolutely phenomenal game against Florida last week, in particular in that first half. But it seemed like everything was clicking for them. They kind of got back on the same page coming off of a bye week, and the timing was just excellent on offense, and they did a really good job on defense. But going up against Florida, that's not really saying much. Their offense is absolutely putrid right now, especially without DJ Lagway. This is not going to be a Florida offense that you're facing. I really like what Arkansas does. They have a very balanced game plan. Both of their running backs are going to be healthy for this football game. I like Russell and as a big thumper. Jaquindon Jackson, I think, is as close to healthy as we've seen him since he's gone down from the injury, and he is a dynamic player as well at running back. Can they get the running game involved in effective in this football game? That, to me, that's a big question, because the defense for Texas is phenomenal. They can or I should say the secondary for Texas is phenomenal. They can turn the ball over on you. They play really tight coverage. You'll see some coverage sacks from Texas from time to time. They do a really good job, but this is a pretty good wide receiver unit for Arkansas as well. I like Armstrong a lot. I think that he presents a problem for opposing defenses, and just all in all, because of how balanced they play, and because of the threat for Green to be able to run, I think it puts a lot of stress on defenses, not to mention Petrino's ability to call a great offensive game plan. It's pretty impressive to watch. If you haven't seen Arkansas play this season, they are very fun to watch on offense, and I could see this being a shootout. Having this game being played at Arkansas, I think gives the Hogs a huge advantage. This is a rivalry game for both teams, but probably more so for Arkansas, and they would want nothing more than to spoil the Texas's chances at an SEC championship or something like that in this football game, potentially even a playoff berth when it's all said and done. And I think that they present a good enough challenge for Texas to be able to do that. My concern is Texas going up against Arkansas's defense. Arkansas's defense has been pretty good. It's not their strongest side of the ball, that's for sure. They're kind of middle of the pack for an SEC defense, and in a conference that is just playing elite defense. For the most part, on average, it's playing really good defense. But I like Jackson coming off the edge. He's probably a first or second round draft pick coming off the edge there. He does a really good job for them defensively. I like some of the secondary players that they have. I like Metcalf. I think he does a great job. They really play the run pretty well. It sounds like, based on what Sark said in his press conference, it sounds like Jarrett Gibson is kind of getting back and getting more involved in the game plan. Does he get more involved? He's a pretty dynamic freshman running back there. So does Texas get more involved in the run game in this one? Honestly, looking at both sides of this here, I think whoever runs the ball more could end up winning this football game. Whoever runs the ball more effectively could win this football game, and I like Arkansas to be able to do that with their two backs. I don't know, man. Like I said, this is a head scratching matchup for me. I'll go ahead and tell you, I definitely like Arkansas to cover here. I think that Arkansas is more tested in these big matchups than Texas is at this point in the season. We saw Texas get their first big matchup against Georgia, and Georgia just freaking hit them right in the mouth from the word go. As soon as the whistle was blown, Georgia just had an onslaught. a strong defensive performance from them and won them the football game. I could see the same thing happening in this football game, except with Arkansas on offense being able to put up some points early and extend drives and put the stress on the Texas defense. That's how Arkansas is going to win this football game. They got to get up early, right? If you're behind 14 points or something like that to Texas, I don't see Arkansas being able to climb back in this one. We saw it last week, 2 weeks ago now. Arkansas is coming off of a bye, which is pretty important to remember as well. But we saw against Ole Miss, Arkansas put up 30-something points against that Ole Miss defense, which says something for sure. But early in the football game, Taylor Green goes out at some point, and he comes back in. He's obviously not 100%. They're struggling to extend drives. They can't allow that to happen in this football game if they're going to win. And I don't think it is going to happen. I think that this is kind of at this point, this is the Super Bowl for Arkansas. I mean, this is one of their last big matchups of the season, and I think that they are playing the upset card pretty hard this week, and I think that they could absolutely win this football game. This is a Texas team that really, to me, this is the temperature check for Texas. This is where I'm gonna study who you are as a football team, because outside of the Georgia game, we haven't seen them really play anybody. Michigan is not the team that we thought that they would be going into the season, and now, I mean, I don't know how to measure Texas until after this football game is played. So I do think it's going to be a pretty close game. Like I said, I've got Arkansas covered in this one. I'm probably leaning Texas, but I would not be surprised if Arkansas is able to win this one at home for their fans and for Sam Pittman, who's had a pretty tough go at it this year with his schedule.
No doubt, it's been a tough one. Yeah, so they're begging you to try to take the under in this game, and they've got the number all the way up to 56.5. And by the way, if you're into college football betting, you got to join us on Thursday. We're huge into the college football betting. We keep up with our records all year, all that stuff. We got a show every Thursday. It's called Between the Lines at 7:30 Eastern. We'd love for you to come join us for that, because I'll more than likely have a play on this game if you're interested in this one. But what I was saying was the under of 56.5 is juiced, a little bit. They're wanting you to take that under there. They're trying to add some type of incentive for you to take that under there. I think this one goes over, Mason. I think this is one of those that goes over. I don't think a ton. I don't think it goes over a ton, but 59 is a key number, and I think 59 is one of those numbers in which it could hit in this game. So I'm thinking possibly over in this one, especially if we're considering Arkansas to be able to hang in this game. And I think both of us are in agreement that Arkansas has got the makings to be able to hang in this game. The run game is going to help them a ton. That's imperative. Well, another thing that I thought was just kind of interesting, and I just wanted to mention it before we get out of this video. Texas's offensive line hasn't been near as good as advertised this season. So that's a big point in this football game. I feel like that offensive line, ever since that Georgia game, everybody's kind of looked with a squinted eye at that offensive line. Like, is this group really as good as what we thought they were, or were they just going against Big 12 defensive lines last year? So I think that's an interesting thing to kind of watch in this game. And Texas has been great at turning the ball over, but they've been great at getting interceptions. 14 of their turnovers are through the air this season. We talked about it. Arkansas has been fairly decent at protecting the ball from being intercepted. Their problem has been putting the ball on the ground. And so make of that what you will, but I don't know that the strength of Texas turning the ball over matches up with the weakness of Arkansas there of laying the ball on the ground. Arkansas is looking to get bowl eligible here. There's all the motivation in the world. This is an absolute trap for Texas going on the road here. Give me Arkansas plus 13.5. I don't know that they're able to get the win here. I think that's kind of a long shot, but I think that Arkansas can keep it within a touchdown or 10 points in this one. And I think the over is certainly a possibility, something that I'll be weighing throughout the week. And I would appreciate y'all coming and joining us on Thursday and giving us your insight. Jump in the comment section right now. Let us know. What is your score prediction on this one? Tell us why we're wrong. Love to hear from you. If you're new to the First and Long College Football Show, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button and coming to hanging out with us. We got wall-to-wall Power 4 college football coverage all year long. Your one-stop shop for everything college football. We don't just talk SEC. We don't just talk Big Ten. We talk all of it, okay? And we're here for every single week and all of the awesome matchups that we've got throughout the college football season, right on into the 12-team playoff, which Texas is looking to make their entrance into. All right, guys. Those of you watching live, I certainly do appreciate it. Look, before y'all get out of here, please hit the like button real quick. Just real quick. Help your boys out. If we can get, I swear to God, we get to 10 likes, and then YouTube just takes the video and sends it out to everybody, right? Just please like it real quick. You'll help us out a ton. Y'all have already helped us out a ton. We hit over 1,500 subscribers this week. Actually, don't I have a clap?
Thanks, y'all.
Can you hear that clap? Did that go through, Mason?
Yeah.
I'll do it one more time. Yay. How about a laugh? But you guys have done a great job spreading the word. And we just want to tell you thank you. It's been an awesome season. We've grown just like a weed, right? We had 500 subscribers right before the season, guys. So 1,000 of you guys have come and jumped on board. That's been huge. And we certainly do appreciate it. Let's keep the momentum going. And let's get the good word of the First and Long College Football Show out there. I certainly do appreciate it again. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Join us on Thursday. Don't forget, First and Long College Football Show. We've got the best bet show called Between the Lines. A lot of fun, 7:30 Eastern. I had a great week betting last week. So come bet with us while the betting hand is hot. Y'all have a great night. See you next time.